So just wanted to take a minute, thank everybody for attending today. Hopefully we can actually get this kicked off in this next 30 seconds and say thank you for taking your time. My name is Gill Klinger, and I am Key Advisors team. With my co-host, Tom Palenchar.
Good afternoon. I'm Tom Palenchar with Key Advisors. A little bit about myself. I've been in the trucking industry or commercial vehicle industry since 1984. So been around a while, seen a lot of things, been working in the service operations side of things, helping dealers improve their service operations for the last several years. Yeah, and that's a little bit about my background.
So I've been in the transportation industry for that same 38 years, and no, we're not twins. Been with Key Advisors for about 3 years now, and really enjoy what we have the ability to be able to do to come to others and help share our knowledge and best practices to increase your dealership and their profitability. We do have a special guest today, Mr. Nutitng, if you'd like to introduce yourself from Decisiv.
Sure. Hi, I'm Tom Nutitng, obviously with Decisiv. I've been with this company, just about 7 years, and I've been in the commercial vehicle industry since '85. So Tom's got me beat by a year. Started out as a diesel mechanic at a small fleet, and I worked for various dealerships throughout my career. I worked for DGNA for about 15 years. And I'm with Decisiv, and I do see some familiar names on the meeting today. So welcome, folks. And that's a bit about me. And I'm going to be talking about a little aspect of the Decisiv platform that some of you may or may not be familiar with. So we're looking forward to having a good time here today.
Thank you, Tom. I'm Mr. Nutitng. I wanted to just take a minute out and say, why are we here? Some housekeeping rules. If you have some ideas or questions that you'd like to ask, I ask that you put them in the chat box that you can find at the bottom of the screen. And Mark Benson is also with us from Key Advisors, and he's going to kind of keep track of all of our questions. We do have a questions and answers session near the end of the class, so please hold them at that time. Put them in anytime. Mark will let us know what those questions are as we go. So the big question on the screen is, why are we here today? Bottom line, we need to find ways to increase our fixed ops profitability. All in all, how can we do that? Why is that important? For every dollar that we have that we sell in labor, we sell about $1 worth of parts at the same time. So this is a one team, one dream kind of vested interest. It helps lift our fixed operations gross profit up. It also helps us work with our departments internally and externally and be a better face for our customers going forward. This will also, using the Decisiv platform, help us increase our shop throughput and our capacity. What is throughput? It allows us the ability to push through in a certain amount of work through a certain time period. And as far as capacity is, what is the maximum that we could do that amount of work with the current staff that we have, the current facility that we have in place? How do we maximize those two opportunities at the same time? We're also going to talk about the Rule of Twos. That came out right. And the profitability of the Rule of Twos. What does that mean to us? How does that apply to our dealerships? And most importantly, how does that affect the Decisiv platform and our standard operating procedures that support that? Nonverbal communication. This is the most important part of the Decisiv platform. It helps us internally to be able to have those discussions with our staff without leaving our workstations. How the service advisors communicate with the foreman. How the foreman workflow, the RO to the technician. How do we communicate with the parts department? Are the parts in stock? What kind of information do we need from our parts department so that we can basically, at the end point, after we determine the root cause, how do we get that information then out to the customer in a nice professional manner? And then how do we get that approval back quickly and efficiently? And most importantly, how do we keep our customers informed throughout the whole repair process? That being said, we're going to take some time today to discuss the quick action buttons and their importance to the whole program of our external communications with the customers, and the ability to be able to set those kind of parameters with the customers. Here's our next update. This is what we found. This is how we're going to communicate with you. This is such a huge thing, especially with our customers that have never, ever said to us, you over communicated with us. So that being said, we will also talk about paperless and workflows and how does that affect our businesses and how can we make ourselves more efficient, more effective. Our structure is of the most important thing, like having an SOP, standard operating procedure, in place to support that. We have to have the disciplines. Everybody has to be on board. Everybody has to be completely bought in to make this successful. And our managers, our staff have to understand the importance of keeping the tech in their bay, working on that asset at all times. What can we do to support them to make them successful? Tom, would you mind talking to us a little bit about the rule of twos and what they mean? And
Yes,
how does that affect us with the Decisiv platform?
yes, absolutely. The rule of twos is something that Key Advisors has developed after analyzing well over 1 million repair orders from all different OEMs, all different dealership sizes, markets, you name it. The rule of twos applies everywhere. And essentially, if you're able to do the rule of twos or get your repair orders into these 3 buckets that I'm going to talk about in a minute. The first one being lead. So in other words, this is from the RO open to the tech first punch. You want that less than 2 hours. So you want to get on that job so you can let the customer know what's going on with their vehicle, especially if you're doing a diagnosis. That way they can plan on what has to happen, whether they need to transfer that load to somebody else, whatever they need to do, that's getting that information to them quickly. So that is, from the customer perspective, it's that initial communication and getting things going and keeping them up to date. The next piece is the production piece. So this is from the time tech first punch to the tech last punch. And what we're saying here is anything less than 2 times the build hours. So if you're billing 10 hours on a job, the time that truck sits in that bay is no more than 20 hours. Okay, we know a lot of you guys aren't open weekends or nights and things of that nature, but still, if we can keep it that between tech first punch and last punch, that any work on that truck is less than 2 times the build hours, you're going to be far more profitable on that RO. The one thing that we also are finding with the roll of twos is when you combine all 3, Gill, go ahead and hit me on the lag one. On the lag, this is tech last punch to RO close, less than 2 days. So what we'll be talking about in that whole communication piece, and I'll get into it in more detail later and how we're doing it, that if we're keeping that customer, we're keeping the estimate live with the RO live in the DMS, and we're communicating that to the customer. When you come to close at the end, there's no if everything matches and the customer is approved, there's no reason you can't close that RO in less than 2 days. Where we see those opportunities at dealerships is we haven't kept the customer up to date. All of a sudden they get a surprise and now you're negotiating, and oftentimes that truck is left, So you're negotiating without a hostage. And the longer you're negotiating with that customer, your profitability on that RO goes down significantly. We also know that if we can reach all of these, we know that your tech efficiency is up well above 120%. We know that if we don't meet them, especially on the production one, we know your tech efficiency is usually well below 80 or 90% on lower. So this is a huge thing in making profitability for your shops. Is if you're looking at this and looking at these guidelines, it's going to make your shops more profitable. Now, how does Decisiv play into that? That is where we have, that Gill's going to talk about our internal communication, and then I'm going to come back and talk about the external communication with our customers.
So internal communications, one more time, nonverbal communication. This is where we get to store all of that information. We look at the fact of our workflows back and forth between the service advisor, the parts department, the foreman, the technician. All of this communication is combined into one centralized location. One of the great things to equivalent from Decisiv is everything is a timestamp. So because it is time stamped, we have the ability to measure. And how do we find areas of improvement or areas of opportunity that we could reduce waste in our overall throughput process while making us more efficient in the overall throughput time. There is no other needs for Outlook or any other information platforms like instant messenger or texting or everything else, because everything is held in the case and that case lives forever. All your warranty documentation, all your customer notes, all your technician notes. If you ever had to go through an audit or if you ever got called into court, all that will be documented into one place. Now, remember, when we're using Decisiv and we're using the note section, we either send it or we save it. And that's going to be important as we go. Tom, can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. For those of us that have not used Decisiv before and have considering using this as a platform, which is a great tool, we would pull up the case. We'll be able to see where our notes and our workflows go, and everything is documented in a timely order. It'll say who it's from, where it's going to go, who sent it, what time, and what the actual content is that we're trying to communicate non-verbally with the next employee. Next. There's two types of internal communications. There's two kinds of communications, internally and externally. You'll see up on the screen that you'll see a green highlighted area with a note on the right, that's internal. Our customers cannot see any internal notes. Any customer that's listed in white is an external note that they can see. Our fleets have the ability to be able to see that. Our factory reps have the ability to see anything that we classify as an external note. Again, everything is time stamped, so we can see in a chronological order how everything transpired, looking for areas of communication or areas of opportunity to remove waste. And a great training tool. Next. Workflows. What is a workflow? A workflow is when we take the actual physical hard copy that all of us are used to, and we hand it to the next person in line. Service advisor to the foreman, foreman to the tech, technician back to the parts counter. However, our workflows are currently in place in our dealership. That is an electronic version of a workflow when we use Decisiv. One of the things that we've seen during our implementation periods, especially somebody that just came on board, is you'll notice in the red box where it says assign to, when I assign it to somebody, that means I'm handing them the RO. When I notify somebody, that means I'm telling them information about the RO. You'll notice that the drop box is not shown on the assigned to. We need to open that box up and select who the next person is that I'm going to workflow this to. For example, I would workflow this to the technician, and in the comment box to the right, I would say, please perform a PM. At the same time, to save efficiency, I could select the notify and notify my back parts counter person and say, please pull the PM service and deliver to Bay 13. I can either send it, in this particular case, by assigning it, or I can assign it, leave the case as if I need to go to the next case to be able to work like a foreman would do. All of the comments, and when you workflow, this is very, very important. We're passing a baton. We need to tell the next person why we're passing the baton non-verbally. That's what the comment section is for. We should be able to look back into the workflows and see it came from and went to, and this is the reason why. Next slide, please. Tom, why don't you tell us a little bit about external communications, please?
Yes, on the external communication, this is your communication to the customer, whether it is a fleet or a smaller customer. The one thing that is consistently heard over and over by the dealers, by the manufacturers, is we're not talking to or communicating with our customers and keeping them up to date. All right. So I'm going to show you in a few minutes the quick action buttons, which are specifically designed for communicating at specific steps during the RO process directly with our customer. Okay. You're going to have better customer satisfaction. The other thing is they're going to have a quicker update on the RO status. We'll have from the dealer side, we're going to have decreased waiting time on customer approvals, as well as purchase orders. Again, as Gill has talked about the internal communication, it saves time with the service advisors and in the service office. It also is timestamped so that we could actually measure. We hear a lot about, well, the customers don't get that approval to us quick enough. Okay, well, now you can actually measure it and do something about it because you have timestamps. And again, it is saved forever. They have the ability to, let's say you have a multi-line repair order. They have the ability to approve the entire repair order or just one line or two lines or whatever that may be. Tom Nutitng will show you that in a few minutes. And also, again, we don't have a need for Outlook or any other communication system because it's all happening through the platform. So the faster we can communicate, we reduce that throughput time, and then we could actually get more through the shop and make the tech more efficient. So at the top of any case, what you're going to see are these 4 quick action buttons, the QABs as we call them. And so those are the 4 main ways that we communicate at specific times during the repair process. Other times where we may just want to send a note to a customer, we do have the note option as well. So in the next couple slides, I'm going to kind of run you through is, okay, when we hit the quick action button for check-in, it's going to look like this. And these are the areas where we find opportunities with the dealer, especially as they're coming on board and learning the process and learning the Decisiv system, that where there are opportunities to improve their communications. So this is the quick action button, the check-in, okay? And at the very top up here, you're gonna see the opportunity to put in up to 15 recipients. So you have to click on the box, select who you're going to send this email to tell the customer that, hey, your truck is here and we're going to be working on it within 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever that is. And you would put that in the notes section, and you would once you fill it out, it'll send straight on to them, to the customer. The next quick action button, and I've got this broken down into 2 screens because it's a longer scroll down, is the request for approval. So now you've done the triage on the truck and you're like, okay, I need to get an estimate to this customer. Okay, again, at the top, the one thing that we notice is people don't put in the recipient. Okay, you need to put in the customer. Otherwise, when you go to hit request for approval, it doesn't go anywhere. So you got to make sure that you have somebody that it is going to. Again, you would put notes into the yellow area. Some of our dealerships that we work with, they already have a saved response right below the gold area. And they, instead of typing it out every single time, they can go into that saved response and, it may be something as quick as, dear Mr. Customer, we have this estimate, please approve it, and we'll get working on your truck. Something to that effect. The second, as we scroll down that same page in that drop down, at the very bottom, you see the print preview estimate. We can't stress enough that the service advisors go and select this preview estimate so they see exactly what is going to their customer before they hit the request for approval button. And so when you select the preview estimate, you're going to see this screen. Okay, this is exactly what your customer is going to see. And then, as Tom's going to show you, how they can approve or not approve different lines or the entire RO. Then the third one is asset ready. So we have brought the truck in, we did any triage on it, we have created an estimate, sent it out to the customer, got their approval, we finished the repairs, we did the QC inspection, all of that, and now we're telling the customer, and again, putting the recipient name in, we're sending a note to them say, hey, Mr. Customer, your asset is complete, all the repairs are done, please come and pick it up. And whether you need to send an updated estimate at that time, or if it's an existing estimate, there are no changes, you just go with it. And then finally, asset and service. Okay, there are multiple reasons for doing this. The big fleets, again, you're sending a note to someone in their operations, maybe more than one person, saying this asset is back in service and now we can put it back to work. We can talk to the driver, the operator, whoever, that, hey, this is ready and it's already in service. Everybody knows it's in service. On the other side, from the dealer side, asset and service relieves the dealership of your care, custody, and responsibility. This is huge. Something happens after that vehicle leaves. The fact that you put asset in service, whether the repair order is still waiting on a purchase order or you're going through warranty or whatever it is, this is telling everybody that the customer has this asset. It is not sitting on your lot any longer. And Gill, you want to talk about how all these things with all this communication, how it leads up to going paperless.
Thank you, Tom. One of the benefits of using the Decisiv platform is the ability to be able to go paperless. But before we can go paperless, we have to have a solid structure foundation in place. An SOP, a standard operating procedure that breaks it down step by step, is of the utmost importance, especially if you have multiple rooftops. We have to have the disciplines in place to make sure that everybody is on board. We have 100% buy-in and everybody's in it to win it. If one department does not want to participate, this process does not work. We have to make sure that this is the most important thing. One of our current dealer groups that we've worked with, their employees actually came to the management and said, Why are we carrying around this piece of paper? We don't want to do it. It's a waste of time. We want to go paperless. They went paperless over a year ago and they have not looked back since. They love it. It's easier. They're more efficient. Their throughput times went unbelievably. Their gross profit shot up because we're doing things in a timely manner, more effective, more efficiently. The customers are communicated. They're responding faster because everything is right where it all belongs. Decisiv is the one-stop shopping. All the communication should be put into this. If a customer was to call us up on the phone and say, how's my asset doing? Anybody that has access to Decisiv should be able to tell that customer within 10 seconds, this is where we are, this is what has been done, this is the next step that we need to complete yet. By doing this and doing paperless, we have the ability to be more efficient, and we also can put, from a capacity standpoint, we can do more with what we currently have. We don't need to add more technicians. We don't need to do brick and mortar. We don't need to do anything because we're more efficient and more effective with our current staff. Tom, next step. Let's turn it over to Mr. Nutitng and let's talk about that communication level where we, what the customer sees once we send this stuff out from Decisiv.
Okay, before you kill that, Tom, hold out there for just a second. Just want to explain that at its core, the Decisiv SRM platform is a communication and estimating tool. So all the elements that you just saw regarding internal communication and external communication is wonderful stuff. If I can reduce my lead times by waiting for information from a customer or having a customer wait for information from me, if I can use the platform to close that gap, you know, $1 saved in expense is $1 that goes straight to the bottom line. So I'm going to share my screen here and I'm going to focus on the customer communication element of it. There's a couple good questions that came up in chat and we'll catch those at the end. But one of the ones that caught my eye is what percentage of customers are approving or declining using the case functionality. And although I don't have an exact number, I can say a lot are. Those folks that train their customers to receive the emails from the Decisiv platform enjoy overall better efficiency in the service transaction event that takes place. So I'm going to start sharing my screen here, do that, and hopefully I'll be good here, and I'll hit share there. So right away on the screen, those that aren't familiar with the Decisiv platform, I'm looking at my cases screen, and each line represents a case with a repair order number. Some don't, but it is a case. And for communication on these cases, if I hover my mouse over the repair order number, I can see what my latest notes are. So to the internal communication point of eliminating the use of having to use Outlook or Microsoft Teams or other SMS platform that's outside of the case, we want to drive all the communication into the case where it's preserved here for as long as we have electricity. It can always be researched later. So I drilled into the case, and then you see the 4 quick action buttons that Tom was talking about earlier. And these are the 4 main communication points with the customer. Now, on this particular case, I'm just going to jump into my notes section here. And here's my previous notes. The ones in green backfield are internal notes. So we had a fair amount of communication on this particular event, from the diagnosis to what the situation is, to the request for a parts P&A there, and then the response from our parts people back that all parts are quoted and in stock. That's good. I'm just going to jump over to workflow real quickly here, and just to show how this stacks up. So the event began at this time and date stamp here, so we can measure the time and date stamps from each workflow event, from diagnosis to what the technician found, to going over to parts for P&A, and then the response from parts. So the next step in this particular event would be to use my next quick action button, which would be request approval. And this brings up another question that came up in chat. If I don't select a recipient here, do I get a pop-up like I do in notes if I'm just writing a note to a case without a recipient? And the answer is no. That'd be a wonderful enhancement. Now, one other question that did come up here. I'm going to select my particular recipient here. The other question is on the PDF estimate itself. If I were to look at that preview, do I see a line item total on each individual line? The answer is no, but that is slated for development. That's going to be in an upcoming release coming out very soon, because I agree with the comments in chat. The old format was a little bit easier to read, because if I have customers that want to break down parts and labor total by each line item, they could do so very simply. Now we've had to do some explanation, but that is underway to be fixed. So here I can, if I know that the estimated time of repair, or some folks that's estimated time of completion, if I can target that date, I would be happy to announce that here. If there's nothing else that this particular vehicle needs, everything is set, ready to go. I know what my part situation is. I know what my base situation is, my tech availability, and so forth. I could be happy to enter in that estimated time of repair. So for this example, I'm just going to put tomorrow, 4 p.m. and I can write like that, and it will accept it. I can put in a custom note here, or I can use a saved response. And if I want to ask my customer to please approve this estimate, I would select that and insert it. Now, think about this. If all the elements of this repair are known right now, why would I not ask for a purchase order? Because one, I'm going to be waiting for an approval that I know sometime later I might be waiting for a purchase order. So if I can reduce that lead time by just a fraction, I'm better off here. So maybe I want to add in, please provide a PO if able. For example, here, this is new feature. I can customize what my PDF is going to look like, but in the essence of time, I'm just going to hit my request approval button. Now, in doing so, and using any of these quick action buttons up here, that's going to start populating our status info on the case here. So in hitting that request approval button, I've done a few things. I've established my ETR because I put that in manually. My follow-up time is set out for a couple hours. That's my default. And my repair status automatically changes to hold for authorization. Well, that's all well and good. So what does the customer really see on this end of it? So if I'm Mr. Customer now, I'm going to switch roles. I'm going to become a customer. And the customer is going to receive an email notification. I'll just hit the refresh button there. Here's an approval request, and it comes from Decisiv. This is customizable now too. So you can customize how you want your emails to your customers to look. So I'm going to click on that URL here. I'm sorry, click on the email here to open it, and I see a URL, which we want to train our customers to begin using. If they don't, they can simply reply to this email. There is, if I scroll down, the PDF attachment that was displayed earlier. They can view that and reply. And in doing so, that reply or any communication the customer has with the dealer using this platform is going to remain in that case. That's the beauty about it. So I'm going to click on the URL and show you what the customer sees. This may be familiar to some of you, maybe not. So all the repair items that I have for initial assessment through the cooling system pressure test, all these things that require my customer to approve, he can do so. How can he do this? He can mark all of the items approved at once, or individually, he can select an option to approve, defer, or decline. Decline says, I don't want to do it. It's going to come across as not sold. If I defer a repair item, the next time this vehicle comes into a shop using Decisiv and they create a case on it, that deferred line item will show up as a recommended operation. So there's a nice little feature to try to retain some potentially lost labor. In this instance, I'm just going to go mark all approved. I'm going to click that button there. Customer can put an additional comment here if he wishes, or he can, and then hit the approve operations. Once he's set them all to approve, then he's going to go ahead and hit the submit button here. In doing so, that does a few things. I'll show you the items for approval removed from the view. And you see that the conversation that the dealership has had with the customer here, customer has a very similar notes feature here where you can contact people back at the dealer and either start a dialogue here or continue a dialogue. And then scrolling down a bit further, just pertinent case information, where the service location is, the asset info, and so forth. Now, if the customer were asked to provide a purchase order number here, you can certainly do so. And if he was able at this particular time to provide one, all they have to do is click on the edit button, put in PO 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hit save, and that's done. Meanwhile, back in our case, if I were the service advisor, I might be sitting out here at my cases screen, and maybe I've got a new note. I've got a notification here. There's an unread note. service advisors received an email notification. Hovering the mouse over, I can see that the estimate was approved by that particular fleet user. So I'm going to drill into the case again. We'll take a look at some aspects of the case here. Here's the communication coming back from the customer. Scrolling down, I would see that my repair status is set to approved. My follow-up time is automatically adjusted. So now I can move forward with repair. If that's utilizing workflow, to workflow this case either back to parts to tell them that they have a parts need, to pull the parts, deliver them to the bay, or maybe I'm going to workflow directly to the technician, or maybe there's a foreman in the middle to begin the process of ending the repair event. So that brings around communication, external communication from the customer back and forth. Then the final points of touch with the customer would be the asset ready. And here I'm going to click this asset ready button when the repairs are completed, announcing to the customer that he's ready to pick up the vehicle. My only word of caution here is that make sure that the vehicle is actually ready to be picked up. All the paperwork is done, seat covers, floor mats are removed, the truck is cleaned up and ready to go. And then as the customer picks up his vehicle, settles with the cashier, whatever he has to do, or maybe everything's warranty, who knows, click the asset and service button. Now, this is a particularly important button for a lot of fleets that have multiple interested parties in the vehicle, where I might have an operations department, I got dispatch, and maybe a maintenance department too, that want to know the situation about this vehicle. Those customers prior to using Decisiv, you probably get calls from 3 different people wondering what the situation of the asset is. Now, if the contact information that you have from this customer hits all those different departments at the fleet, like Dart Transit comes to mind, I used to call on those guys years ago. If I hit that button in service or asset in service, it's going to announce to all those people that the vehicle has left the yard, is back on the road, and all is well there. So again, quick action buttons, main communication points with the customer, externally, workflow, internal communication with our teams, and assigning the RO around from different aspects of our operation. So that ends that discussion about external communication.
Hey, Thomas,
Back
can
to
I?
you, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Nutitng.
I'm going to, I'll stop my share and see where we're going to go from here.
Perfect. Next up, Tom. Some of the highlights that we talked about today: increasing your fixed operation profitability and how we can accomplish that, increasing your shop throughput and capacity at the same time. We're also going to, we talked about the rule of twos and how that's profitable, why it's so important to us. We talked about nonverbal communication, both internally and externally, using the quick action buttons that we all spoke about. And finally, paperless workflows. So that brings us to the next and the most important part of this webinar is questions and answers. So Mark, can you tell us some of the questions that were posed today?
Yeah, I know Tom was getting to some of the questions as he went. I think where we left off was Allison's question about being able to search the notes and quickly find things for updates for customers. If somebody had a question before that didn't get answered, if you wouldn't mind putting that back in the chat. But I believe we got the ones before that. But yeah, Allison asked about being able to quickly find updates for customer. Sometimes probably a lot of notes to look through. Is there any kind of search feature or the ability to have different types of notes to pull up to make that process a little quicker?
That's a great question.
You want to take that one? Go ahead.
I'll take that one. So Allison, yes, there is. In your notes, the most current is always at the top. They're always done in chronological order. The green ones are internal. Anything that we talk about internally between the service department, the parts department, the technicians. The external ones are the ones that we reached out to the customer, both inbound and outbound. Next one.
We had a question about DMS integrations. What options are available for that?
Mr. Nutitng?
Yeah, I'll take that one. Let me just back up once to Allison's question.
Sure.
Within the case, when you go in the notes section, there is a print notes button there too. And I just did that while Gill was explaining that too. So although we don't today have a robust search feature for historic notes, because as you know, some cases can be enormous in notes. If it's multiple repair lines, multiple communications with the customer and so forth, internally, externally. Just wonder if you try that to print notes and using the PDF search functionality, if you can search for a note, that may be something. I'd like you, Allison, to take my email address at tnutitng@decisiv.com, which will be coming up at the end of this. And we can start a dialogue there. And that's a great suggestion that you have. I'd like to learn more about what you're doing with it and how we could be able to help. As far as DMS integrations that we have several. The top three that we're sporting right now are Proceed, Carmack, and CDK. We have integrations with DSI, with Flintlock, with RIMS, with lots of different systems. If you're considering an integration option for a business system and it's not that popular, don't let that stop you from contacting us. We can do a lot of customization work for integrations with pretty much any business system that can reach our API.
Gentlemen, can I offer some best practices regarding the first question?
Sure, Tony, go ahead.
So if you're looking to receive accurate notes in a timely manner, and you want to be able to find which notes pertain to the most recent activity on the case, there's a number of things that you can start doing. Usually the notes are coming from the floor or from the back parts counter if you're a service advisor. Set up a group email contact that involves all of the office personnel as a contact under your location, and train your personnel to start sending their case notes to that contact in the list. And whenever a case note is added by a technician or a foreman or a back parts counter person, they're hitting that email and it's hitting everybody in the office. The other thing you can start to do is cases that pertain to you that you want to keep an eye on, start using the watching feature, because even if a note is not sent to you, then you will receive it in your email.
That was some great best practices. Thank you, Tony, for sharing those with us. Mark, what's the next question?
Next question came up when Tom had the customer view up. And was that status the repair status that we're looking at? Or was that correct? That repair status correct?
Yeah, I asked the question, and my question is on the customer view where it says status, is that, and I think it is because you were asking for authorization, and on the customer view, it was said hold authorization, I think. Does that status reflect the repair status of the case?
Yes, it
Yeah,
does.
so yeah, it does. And now there are two different statuses. The one you caught was the fleet status. So we identify customers, we call them fleets. Now, there is a fleet portal that does have its own case statuses. There's case status, there's repair status, as we know it on the service side. But yes, if I send a request approval to a customer, that's going to flip my service provider status to hold for authorization, and the fleet will also see waiting for authorization will show as theirs.
Perfect, great answer. Next one, Mark.
When there is service declined by the customer, does the system, are we able to sort that data to track it by advisor, work type of truck, anything like that, and treat it kind of as a lost sale?
Yes. Oh, you want an explanation? Okay, yes. So
That's the short answer.
the thing is, yes. Yeah. Within the Decisiv platform, there are historical analytics reporting, a couple of different tools. One is Insight. Some of you may be familiar with that. And we do have some general canned reports that will track a dollar amount of lost sales. So that is a line item on a case that I presented to a customer. He has declined to have it done. I've left it on the case, but showing it is not sold with that dollar amount value, parts, labor, additional fees, and so forth. In the Insight reporting, it will show that dollar amount as lost potential lost labor revenue, as well as parts. Now, if you want to drill down even granular to get down to the case level, there's the way that we can do that. And we offer our custom reporting solutions up to anyone for any particular report that you'd want to see customized. We can certainly do that work for you too.
Thank you, sir. All right, Mark, next one.
So I think we're going down to Janelle. So if you're working with multiple locations in your workflow, you can be in any location and click on My Cases and see those. It would be nice if you could do that same thing with watching. It sounds like right now you have to be in that specific location. Is there any functionality to be able to do that with watching, or any updates coming soon where that will be available?
Mr. Nutty, you want to take that one, or?
Let's see.
So while you're looking for that, Janelle, maybe one of the best practices, as we know, to use vision, and we might be able to, if we have a few minutes left here, to be able to show that. In the current condition with the multiple rooftops, when we have the vision platform out, we could list all of the platforms, or I'm sorry, all the rooftops in that vision platform to be able to do that. Tom, Mr. Nutting, if you could refresh my memory there, is that possible to watching for multiple rooftops at one time if she has access to multiple rooftops?
Yeah, I read through the question again. It makes better sense to me now. Yeah, that would be the excellent solution to do that. So if you have, if you're associated with multiple platforms, if you're a warranty, if whatever your job function is that requires you, because you have multiple rooftops and you have to see into each one, what cases are important, what is it that you want to watch? Those custom filters can be created in Vision. And for whatever platform that your business has associated with it, Vision can pull that data. And then you can create filters and sort out that data by location, what it is that you want to see. I think that's probably the better solution than from bouncing from portal to portal to portal and looking through your cases screen. That's what Vision was intended to do. So exception-based reporting, whatever location you want to see individually or all at once, you decide. And that's something else that we will probably be having in an upcoming webinar too, is talking about Vision.
Good point. We could take this offline, but I believe that one of the card views could be a watching option, but we'll take that offline. All right, Mark, what's the next one?
Sorry, I had actually skipped one. So going back up to Samantha, asking about unread messages or unread notes. Does that only show if no one in the department has addressed it or if you yourself has not read it?
Ooh,
Yeah,
that was
if
good.
somebody hasn't read it. So if somebody clicks on that note, reads it, drills into the case, reads the note, then that icon's going to go away.
Correct.
Can I chime in on
Thank
that
you.
one?
I'm sorry,
I'm
Mark,
sorry?
what was the next one, Mark?
Can I chime in on that one too?
Yeah, Tony, go ahead.
All right, so in your all cases settings, in your little gear icon for your all cases, if you choose date and you add that to your all cases screen, and then you click the date column to where most recent goes to the top, it's not actually the date of the case, it's the date of the last activity of the case. So
That's
then
correct.
every time a case is updated, that's going to be the one that's at the top of the list. That's how I set mine, because I want to see the latest activity so I don't miss something. So in the case of where somebody reads a note and you don't get to see that, it's probably one way to at least mitigate that.
It's a great suggestion.
Good.
Thank you again.
That's exactly right. And that's why we changed the date to updated, because there was a lot of confusion around that. Well, what does date mean? Was that the date the case was created? But no, it was last updated. So I had to train myself that. So I'm glad to see that we've got that updated now. So I got created and updated columns right next to each other now.
Agreed. I also have the updated on my screen. Mark, I think we have a question. I think we have time for one more question. And I know that there's more questions in the chat. I will take all the questions down. We will answer all the questions and then send out a blanket email back to everybody that attended the course today to help answer them in the spirit of time. So who's the lucky contestant, Mark?
So I think the last one is, when is texting back and forth with customers going to be available?
Very, very, very soon. We put a lot of development time and horsepower into that, and we've been discussing it at Decisiv now for several years. And that's going to be announced very soon. I would be surprised if we didn't see it by probably by sometime late second quarter, early third quarter this year.
Thank you for that. All right, Mr.
I like
Palenchar.
Joe's last question. I really like Joe's question here.
Go ahead.
When will AI take over? That's a great one. AI will take over long after I'm dead and buried. How's that?
Touche, buddy, touche. All right, Mr. Palenchar, what's the next slide for us?
Yeah.
Everybody, if you have any more questions about what Key Advisors can help with your dealerships, please don't hesitate to reach our website at keyadvisors.com. We do have discoveries, leaderships, and pulse dashboards, and soon to come, we will now have decisive workshops coming up. Next one. Please don't forget to stop by decisivmarketplace.com. There is new and exciting things all the time, like the new Cummins guidance connector that was just recently released. Great integration tool with any DMS system. By the way, it's only available here in the United States, soon to be in Canada. Found that out the other day. And anything else that we can post that will always be here on their website at any time to look into it. You can click on to read more information or to ask questions. Next. So the next webinar that we're going to host here about Decisiv, this seems to be like I don't know that we want to call it a happy hour because it's in the middle of the day, but it will be on April 12th coming up. And our training sessions from Key Advisors will start with the Decisiv workshop starting May 2nd. Don't forget to look for those upcoming sign-up sheets. Next. If anybody wants to take a screenshot of that real quick for our email addresses, there's myself, Tom Palenchar, and Mr. Nutitng from Decisiv. And then when you do that, would you also do us a favor? We have an internal question. We're trying to figure out which one of the three of us look like the people on the screen. So if you want to take a vote and include that, if you want to send a question or an email to us, please don't hesitate to do that. I do appreciate everybody's time today. I hope this was fundamental. I hope that you learned something today. And I do apologize about the technical difficulties to launch this. It's our first one. So in the spirit of continuous improvement, we'll make sure that we're better next time. Thank you, everybody. It was a pleasure to meet y'all. See y'all on the screen, and we'll see you next time.